have two grandchildren.
It's just a little bit, 7:33. Welcome to the Town of Woodbridge preliminary budget meeting. It's April 24, 7:30 p.m. First and foremost, turn your cell phones to silent, if you wouldn't mind. If you're curious about all the paraphernalia and clothing that's in the building that has to do with birthday, if you feel like you really have to shop and show us what you're buying, we're happy to look at it. But we're actually here to talk about the budget. Your questions and comments will come after a presentation. We're going to ask you to keep your questions and comments relevant to the topic. First, we're going to hear from First Selectman Mika Cardozo.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your evenings with your families and doing the things other things that you might be doing right now and joining us for the preliminary budget hearing. What we're going, as Susan mentioned, Tony will be our finance director. Tony Genovese will be giving us a presentation in terms of showing what we've come up with as a result of working with the many departments, getting input from the town, getting input from the employees, and understanding what we need from a budget standpoint and putting together what we feel is a budget that we could recommend to the town. And this is your opportunity this is for you to take the opportunity at this point in time to give us your input specifically on what you see. So we'll welcome your comments, and with that I will turn it over to Tony Genovese to begin the presentation. Thank you.
It might be off from the actual one. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to the budget hearing. My name is Tony Genovese. I'm the Finance Director and Administrative Officer here in the town of Woodbridge. Before I begin, I just want to note that we have a virtual budget on a line on the town website on the Finance Department page, which goes into a lot more detail on the budget, has charts, graphs, fiscal indicators, debt service information, capital budget information. So if you have a few minutes, I think you'll find it helpful. So the budget process actually begins in September, and the town departments begin preparing their budget in September through December, and the requests are sent to the Finance Department in early January. The staff reviews the budget requests and makes adjustments and asks questions as necessary to present the information to the Boards of Selectmen and Finance. The Boards of Selectmen and Finance receive the information and have budget hearings with each of the departments to understand their budget, ask questions, ask for additional information, so they can be prepared to make a recommendation to the preliminary budget hearing this evening. The Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance each meet to deliberate about the budget, and the Board of Selectmen meets first. They will make a recommendation to the Board of Finance. Then the Board of Finance will use the recommendation and make one to the preliminary budget hearing this evening. The annual town meeting will take place in May, which will then vote on a budget, and then the budget will be in effect on July 1. When putting together the budget, there are four basic priorities that are considered. The first is to control taxes, and that's done a number of ways in carefully balancing wants versus needs. We proactively pursue grant opportunities when we can. We continue our fiscal stewardship, which maintains our AAA bond rating with Moody's, and we have award-winning budget and audit information from the Government Finance Officers Association, which helps with transparency. It's the main objective of both of those programs, is to promote transparency in each process. We maximize our efficiency and effectiveness when we can in terms of cost-saving measures and cooperative purchasing, and we provide services. Gonna get that to work. There we go. So for the 25-26 budget, the budget is $61,197,058. This is the source of revenue sources that we have in the budget. As you can see, majority of our revenue comes from property taxes, just about 90%. The second source is intergovernmental revenue. That's education cost sharing grant. That's special education excess cost grant. That's town road aid and a number of other grants that we receive. We have department charges at 2.44%. That's town clerk fees, recreation fees, building permit revenue, transfer station fees. It's a number of items that we have for department charges. Other revenues is mostly our contribution from fund balance that we have each year in the budget. That's $800,000 currently. We have investment income, and then non-current tax revenue, which is back taxes, delinquent interest, and then we have other financing sources which come up from time to time. In the budget this year, the intergovernmental revenue has increased over 7%. That's mainly due to an increase in the education cost sharing grant from the state of Connecticut and the municipal revenue sharing grant that we receive. Another increase we have is in investment income of 13%, and property taxes here increased 4.97%. I like to always present a snapshot of our three budget components that we have. Our budget components are the town government, the Woodbridge Board of Education, and the Amity School District. And this shows a comparison of the 2017 budget with the 2026 budget. So over that time period, the town budget has increased 16.22%, the Woodbridge Board of Education has increased 34.55%, and our portion of Amity is at 40.95%. So it just gives you sort of an idea of where the expenditures have been going to the last 10 years. The total for that time period is just under 30% for the for the budget as a whole. So our budget is also expenditures are $61,197,058. That includes the 30.28% for the Woodbridge Board of Education, 32.92% for Amity School District, and town government is at 36.8%. So as you can see, education makes up about 63% of our budget. For the budget increase for the 25-26 budget, which stands at $2,088,663. The town government portion increases 21%. I'm sorry, it's 21% of the increase, and increases $615,000. So the town budget is 21% of the total. The Woodbridge Board of Education increases $911,000 and represents 31.5% of the total increase. And a little under half of the increase is for the Amity School District at $1.3 million. Here are some of the increases to our different department groups. Some of the highlights for you, as you can see, the Woodbridge Board of Education is 5.18%. The Amity School District increase 7.25%. The general government is basically all the planning departments, the finance departments, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and that increase is a little under 6%. There's Public Works, 2.79%, Public Safety, 3.97%. So you can see some of the other departments there. That's the one thing I want to highlight, but the two at the bottom, capital expenditures decreased 10.23%, so we're spending less on capital expenditures. Those are pay-as-you-go expenditures. mainly vehicles. There's minor building repairs. There are equipment purchases, and those are 10% less than last year. And debt service increase is 10% because of the first interest and principal payments for the improvements at Beecher Road School, for the roof replacement and the site improvements. So that's the reason why debt service is increasing. The other issue that I want to just briefly touch on is revaluation. This budget the town conducted a revaluation of all properties on October 1st of 2024, which impacts the 25-26 budget. So revaluation is a mass appraisal process of updating property values to ensure a fair distribution of property taxes. And is a state mandated process that is to be completed every 5 years in the state of Connecticut. There's a lot of information on revaluation on the state of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management page. The Office of Policy and Management is responsible for overseeing and enforcing revaluation of all the communities. So that's something to look into. This is a little history. The grand list changes during the prior 3 revaluations. So the one for fiscal year 2011, which was done on October 1st, 2009, was a reduction of 4.32%. 2016 was a reduction of 4.71%. 2021 was a reduction of 3.86%. The reason why I highlight this is because the prior 3 revaluations all had reductions in property values.
Didn't reduce our taxes at all.
And this year is an exception, and is not like the prior 3 revaluations. This year, this is for the revaluation done on October 1st, 2024. There was a real estate increased 55%, a little under 55%. We had reductions in personal property, motor vehicle supplement, and an increase in the regional water company pilot of 12.72%, which is a lot that has to do with the value of the property. So it makes sense that that would increase. Net adjusted grand list for the budget is an increase of 44.59%. So when you calculate your tax bill, it's your assessed value of your property times your mill rate. And so if the grand list goes up, which it did, our mill rate goes down. So you can see the current mill rate is 46.43%. The proposed mill rate goes down to 32.68%. So there's a reduction in mill rate to account for the fact that the grand list has increased. The last area I want to just discuss and touch on, which can have a major impact on the budget in the future, is long-term debt. So long-term debt is something we monitor very carefully. And there are, if you look at our capital plan that's in the book that you have, there are 4 projects that are identified for long-term debt. And they are a Beecher Road School building project at $50 million, a new police facility at $18 million, center building improvements at $10 million, and the former country club of Woodbridge for $3 million. That's for the demolition of the clubhouse and some environmental remediation on the property. So just to illustrate, this is our current debt service, is in yellow, okay? So you can see the 25-26 budget is the town portion is in yellow, and the green is our portion of the Amity School debt. So we are responsible, it's called overlapping debt, and we are responsible for a portion of Amity's debt based on the percentage of the budget. So you can see that it's a little under $3 million. It's hard to see that, but the 2 of them combined are a little under $3 million. And if you look at the yellow, you'll see a drop in 2029, 2030. That's when the radio is paid. That we did a simulcast radio upgrade for police and fire. That's paid off in 29, 30. And then in 2032, 33, you'll see another drop. That is when the country club is paid. So that sort of gives you a snapshot on our debt service. If we were to borrow for the projects in the plan that I showed you earlier, that's the result. So I just want to bring that to your attention. That's a somewhat of a significant increase, increases debt service to about $8 million. So I know there's a lot of discussion that will take place, but I just sort of wanted to highlight that because I think it's important. And there's some dates for you. This Saturday is Earth Day. There's the Amity budget referendum on May 6th. May 19th is the annual town meeting, and the 26th is Memorial Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. That was an interesting round of applause. We're going to go department by department. If we could get some lights on, that would be helpful. Does anybody know how to? Thank you. If you have a question or a comment on the line that I'm calling, please line up behind the microphone. Please try and keep your comments relevant to the budget and the budget process. We're going to begin with, and I'm reading from this if you want to follow along in terms of what departments I'm reading from. We're starting with the Board of Selectmen, line 1110. Proposed budget is $813,949. Any questions or comments?
What page number?
I'm sorry, it's not a page number.
I believe it's 15 if you're looking at the book. Page 15.
Susan, does that include the first selectman's office, or is that?
Yes, it
Okay,
does.
yes.
Did you want to say something? Paul?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Earlier this evening, I petitioned the Board of Selectmen to address two critical issues in the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget. The first issue is tax rate. I supported the idea of the Board of Selectmen recommending to you budget impacting tax rate in response to the recent revaluation to reduce financial strain on housing burdened residents. Any step that recognizes the affordability crisis in Woodbridge and seeks to reduce its fiscal impact is in principle a good one. However, let's be honest about why this relief is needed in the first place. This is not simply the result of a revaluation. The real question is, why did assessed values for more affordable homes rise so sharply, while tax burdens for high-value homes remain flat or even decline? The answer lies in Woodbridge's constrained housing market, a market shaped by local zoning policies that have failed to develop opportunity housing both for current residents and for those in the surrounding region. The shortage of housing that's even remotely attainable has put excessive market pressure on lower value homes, driving up prices and now tax assessments on the few modest options left. This is a housing policy problem, not just a valuation artifact. And while a budget impacting relief program might soften the blow, it is at best limited. If the town is serious about addressing this issue, it should also consider a budget neutral, legally available option. The Board of Selectmen is authorized to adopt tax exemptions that with proper guardrails could provide temporary real relief for the most vulnerable residents without creating budget impact. Which brings me to the second issue I raised with the Board of Selectmen, the root problem, our zoning. Don't eliminate the town planner. If the Board of Finance is asked to approve a budget that removes the town planner, I urge you to consider what that means, not just for planning. Woodbridge hired Bowman & York, a planning firm led by Dr. Donald Poland, after he provided professional planning-based testimony in a zoning matter that helped lead to the adoption of our opportunity housing overlay. He was not a party to a zoning application. He is not a party to a lawsuit against the town. And this firm is widely recognized for housing and zoning policy expertise statewide. Eliminating the firm now would send a dangerous message. It tells the court that Woodbridge can't stomach its own findings. It undermines our own reform efforts midstream, and it risks handing the plaintiffs in the Open Communities Trust lawsuit their most compelling narrative yet, that Woodbridge retreats from the truth when it becomes politically uncomfortable. I understand the pressures you face, but I ask you tonight to lead with clarity, not political caution. If you support relief for housing burdened residents, support the planning that addresses why they're burdened in the first place. If you want to protect the town's finances, don't cut the resources that helps us comply with the law. And if you want to be part of the solution, don't strip the budget of the only credible effort the town has made in decades to respond to its zoning applications. We need housing solutions, we need fiscal discipline. But more than anything, we need institutional courage. I'm glad to take a comment.
Just for the record, your name and the road you're on.
Scott Hunter, I'm a resident of Woodbridge.
Thank you. Okay?
Sorry, I'm talking about it.
Thank you. Any other on Board of Selectmen? If not, probate. 11:20. Seeing none. Town clerk, 11:25. Seeing none. Registrar of voters, 11:30. 82,152. Seeing none. Government Access TV, the line 11:35. Wait a minute. 35,210. Let's see. Seeing none. General Administration, 1140, in the amount of 384,119. Seeing none. Information System, line 1145, in the amount of 284,033. Seeing none. Finance, 1150, in the amount of 271,267. Seeing none. Tax collector in the amount of line 1155 in the amount of 173,519. Seeing none. Assessor's office, line 1160, 197,245. Seeing none. Board of Assessment Appeals, line 1165 in the amount of $2,150. Seeing none. Board of Finance, line 1170, 352,956. Seeing none. Town Plan and Zoning, 1180 in the amount of 65,162. Seeing none. Zoning Board of Appeals, line 1185 in the amount of $2,650. Seeing none. The Center, line 1190 in the amount of $131,000. Seeing none. Community and Cultural Center, line 1191 in the amount of $19,542. Seeing none. Police Department, line 1210, $3,641,244. Seeing none. Fire Department, line 1230, $1,308,911. Seeing none. Emergency Medical Services, 1240, in the amount of $332,890. Seeing none. Animal Control, line 1250, $119,708. Where they got the $8, I don't know. Building Official, line 1270, $125,976. Seeing none. Public Works, line 1310, $1,508,913. Seeing none. Waste Management, line 1350, $729,668. Seeing none. Building Maintenance, 1370, in the amount of $527,752. Seeing none. Human Services, line 1410, in the amount of $568,640. Seeing none. Recreation, line 1510, in the amount of $490.47. Seeing none?
Yes.
Yeah, pool and gym I'm skipping because there's nothing there. Parks Department, line 1520, 308,078. Seeing no comment. Darling House, line 1540, $8,750. Library, line 1550, in the amount of $997,000. Seeing none. Conservation Commission, line 1610, in the amount of $3,300. Seeing none. Economic Development, line 1620, in the amount of $4,600. 1630, Inland Wetland Commission, 1630, in the amount of $50,321. Benefits, line 1710, $5,244,000. Seeing none. Debt service, line 1810, $1,788,569. Seeing none. Woodbridge Board of Education, line 1910, $18,525,855. Seeing none. Amity Regional, line 1920, $20,142,039. Yes, sir.
Will there be time for general comment as well, or do I have to speak on one of these issues? Is that how it works? I don't know the protocol.
If I mention something that you're interested in, that's when you stand up,
Even if it covers other things as well?
as long as it's on the budget.
Okay. I apologize for the call. My name is Keith Smolinski, 25 Prospect Court in Woodbridge. My name is Keith Smolinski, and I'm a district teacher, along with my wife, and also the music director at Our Lady Assumption Church. I've lived in Woodbridge for almost 20 years and have dedicated much of my life to the service of the people here, 7 days a week. I'm extremely worried and saddened by the recent release of the budget, especially the mill rate values, and what it will mean for my family and other local families. For about the last 20 years that I have lived here, the expected tax increase each year was about $300 to $400, or about 2.5%. This was extremely high, but I believed in what we were doing for my family and for the town we lived in, for the pride I had for it. In the general response to our property assessments, we were reassured that the mill rate would be lowered enough to compensate for the high property reevaluations completed in October. However, I know for me and for others this is not the case. My personal taxes with the adjustment are going to increase by 24% this year. This means my current tax rate of $12,000 is going to go up to $16,000 for a 3-bedroom family house with 2 bathrooms. This is just the starting point for the next 5 years as well. If the housing bubble collapses, I am completely stuck with no protection in place. Add in a 150% increase of now the homeowner's insurance, and I'm worried about being able to afford living here. For the first time in my life in Woodbridge, I have started to explore moving to another town. For houses my size in Milford, Oxford, Brookhaven, Orange, Wallingford are closer to about $9,000 for taxes. I would hope that the town would consider a possible proposition to cap taxes to protect homeowners so they know what to expect and can budget for their families each year while also putting money aside for emergencies. Where I grew up, there was a tax cap called Prop 2.5. I do not know what the acceptable cap would be. I know caps have increased beyond the 2% and 3% average increase. That may not be feasible for town expenses, but maybe a 5% cap would still accomplish much while allowing families to budget for this kind of increase. Especially considering that my yearly taxes have now, that's 8 times the amount of taxes I have paid in the last 20 years in 1 year. Woodbridge needs to decide what the priorities are for their workers and for their families. I grew up with the belief in my family that hard work pays off, I've worked 2 jobs for my entire life trying to pay these expenses to live here, and now my dream is quickly vanishing with all these increased costs. I hate to have to leave this place where I've built so many friendships and community connections. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Go ahead.
I was gonna say something similar.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Keith just said. He's a hard-working man, a very good man, very solid pillar of the community. What I want to state is, when I've seen this tax increases befuddling, I never saw this before in my life. It's about as bad as it gets, because a lot of times you see increases, that's because we see improvements. The past few years, we've seen our pool at beach are closed. We've seen school lunches eliminated, school lunches for the children eliminated, and we haven't seen much. Very little of this can be attributed to public sewer, public water, which most of Woodbridge has none of. To me, I often give the analogy, because I've talked to a lot of people. I would address to anybody who is for this budget and doesn't just poo-poos this budget as being somehow justified, is if I was to be your lawnmower guy, and every year, and the taxes in Woodbridge have increased every year, even within the 5-year period, due to the rate of inflation, which is fully understandable. However, if I was to charge $100 to do somebody's 1-acre lot in Woodbridge, the next year charge $103 because of inflation, or whatever it may be, or whatever the case is, then $107, then $108, then $109. In the 5th year, I said, listen, I'm going to raise it to $175 from $110. And you'd probably say, hey, what's the story here? I mean, come on. And I said, well, your cost of your home has increased. I mean, the value of your home's increased. You would say, that's outrageous. It should have nothing to do with the valuation of the home. Good for us, good for the homeowners. And I know you lowered the mill rate, that's good, but it should be lowered a lot more. I mean, like the mid-20s, because I don't see why what is being put in is that, which should be a 40% increase. So in my case, it was similar, it was, I think, around about 30%. And now let me make one statement I think is very vital to make concerning that. People may say now, for instance, I'm a pharmacist myself, I make probably 120 grand a year. Now after the cost of life, what life costs, let's say they got 100. I think that's kind of a safe figure for people in Woodbridge. If you make $100,000 a year, you're not bringing home $100,000 a year. You have to pay for college for your kids after this. We know how expensive that is, and everything else in life, as we know. Insurance is going up a lot. Other things are going up a lot. Now, consider this. If I have, let's say, let's say for instance I have 25,000, or let's say property taxes go from an individual 10,000 to 15,000, or pretty close, 10,000 to 14,000. And they, at the end of the year, have let's say 25,000, which they can actually keep as savings. Okay, just talk about it. Let's say you don't invest enough, you just keep it in an area where you get 3%, whatever the rate of inflation is. Just saying that. Because it's no one else's problem but that person's to manage their personal finances. So if I was to bring home, say 25,000, and now my taxes went from 10 to 14,000 in 1 year. Okay, I have gone from 25,000 for everything I had, with the exception of property taxes. I now have 11,000 instead of 15,000. So the disposable income you have is dropped by that much. Now, I think everybody here was reasonable people, and they can understand what I'm saying, is that it's not a small deal. And not many places have done. So I know some places in Connecticut they tried to pull this roost on people, trying to say this and that, and property values, whatever. That's irrelevant. How much? If it goes to $1 million, it's irrelevant. If you need the money for certain things, okay? I know they need money for other things. The school is very old. It's not my fault they put a flat roof on it, which I still high maintenance, and people have known my dad was an engineer, that that's not a good idea. But be it what it may, I'm not blaming anybody for that. That still has to be fixed, or whatever. What I'm saying is there's no reason, I don't think, to ever bring up the increase in property values. I personally don't want to hear it. Probably, I can't speak for anybody else myself, but I can't imagine many people would want to hear that, because it's irrelevant how much it goes up. It can go down, it can go up, the property values. And so therefore, that being the main impetus, because that's the main reason why this happened. And, you know, that's the main reason why it happened. And I don't see that having any bearing whatsoever. I mean, we pay higher taxes or insurance because of that in a lot of instances, and other things as well. So with that, I want to say thank you for your time. And, you
Can
know,
I just get you to state your name, sir?
sure, my name is Mark Latino. I live at 45 Oxbow Lane.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Capital non-recurring, 1950, 1 million, I know, $1,767,580,000. Any other questions?
Keeping with the flavor of the conversation here. I'm Lou Rotolo, live at 34 Crestview Drive. I've been in town for 35 years. My concern is with the overall reevaluation that was done in town. So I just want to restate some of the figures from the recent proposal. Taxes, the budget has gone up 4.9% from last year. The grand list for real estate increased 54.5% from the prior year. And the mill rate was decreased from 46.43 to 32.68. So when I applied the new mill rate to my new assessment, my taxes increased by 13%. 13%, which is about 2.5 times as much as a 5% increase in the budget. So this is a direct result of the fact that my property increased in value by 61% as compared to the average 54.5% for the whole town. So because my assessment went up by that much, my taxes went up by disproportionate more to the budget. So why did it go up so much? I didn't make any improvements to the house. I didn't see any discrepancies when the new assessment was distributed. So my assessment increased more than average, so other homeowners' assessments must have increased less than average. This always happens, but this year the disparity seems to be excessive. During the last town-wide assessment that was done in 2019, my assessment only differed from the town average by less than 1%. And not much has changed in the town over the last 5 years as far as buildings that are here. Our town has been pretty stagnant, and nothing has changed with my house. So I did a little homework. I looked at all the houses on my street and a couple of the adjacent street. I live on Crestview. I looked at Acorn Hill, and I looked at Meadowbrook. I found that the average for all those homes increased by 76%. I'm sorry, I lost my place. I'm sorry, 76% of the homes increased more than the average. And the average increase was 66%. I took all the houses on the street and looked at and took the average of how much each of those went up in value. It was 66%. It's about a total of 50 houses. So then I started to say, well, what do other areas in town look like? Let me go over and look at the expensive homes in town. So I looked at Penny Lane, Rouse Lane, Hampton Drive, and also Elderslie, which is only around the corner from it, the same neighborhood. And if I did the same math for all those homes, they only increased in value by 44%, 20% less than the average. So all the most expensive homes in town didn't increase by nearly as much as my area. So, additionally, if I look at those houses on those streets, on the most expensive streets in town, 49% of them, almost half, either are not paying, have no increase in taxes, or their taxes are actually going down. So, to the gentleman that last spoke before me, their frustration is due to the fact that so much the budget increase as it is the wide disparity across town with how much the house prices have changed. So I don't have a problem with 5% budget increase, and I don't have a problem paying 5% more. Things go up, inflation, people get raises, I understand, I get that. What I have a problem with is not only, it's not paying my share of the budget increase, is having to pay almost 2 more households' share of the budget increase. I think the town owes us an explanation for why this large disparity exists across the town. And I mean in numbers, not, they look at sales values and blah, blah, blah. What drove houses in the center of town to be lower than the average change, and houses in other areas such as mine to be higher? I think that's only fair to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Hi, my name is Rajkumar Verma from 20 Cowpark Lane. So my concern is, like everybody was saying, average rate increase in total property 54, my property was 90% increase. So what I wanted to know is what metrics this evaluator property, whomsoever did the evaluation, they use to actually calculate, okay, we use this metrics to calculate your house value. When I try to get the answer from the question, it may be on the type of building, it may be because of this size, the type of colonial or your contemporary, but I did not get the answer, like what they use, what parameter they use, like to get the actual increase.
We're going to have the assessor answer your question. Wherever you're comfortable.
I tried to have the assessor change my assessment. They put that
But I think that's what goes into.
my hand didn't know.
Okay, so in the revaluation, we have a set of standards that are set up by the state of Connecticut. What they look at is, they look at sales from October 2nd of 2023 to October 1st of 2024 within the town of Woodbridge. We get all those sales and then we separate them, which ones are capes, which ones are colonials, which ones are ranches, antiques, whatever they be. This is just residential. And so then we take those and we do a matrix. We have to see how old is the building, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what's the square footage, what amenities do they have? Do they have pools, decks, patios, sunrooms, tennis courts? All that information is looked at on that sale. And then what we do for the unsold properties is we take that and we apply that to the unsold properties. So we compare the sold capes to the unsold capes. And we look at, okay, what is the cost? First we compare the sales and say, okay, you have 2 exact properties. One of them has a deck, one doesn't. What is the cost of a deck? 25, we'll just say 2,500, I don't know what it is. So decks are now for capes 2,500. So when you look at, the costing of the unsold, you just take those sold property amenities and how much each one costs, how much per square foot, how much is a bedroom, how much is a bathroom, how much is a deck, and you apply that to the unsold properties. And then there's testing to make sure that they all fall. If capes went up 60%, we make sure that all the unsold properties fall within that 60% increase. If colonials only went up 40%, we make sure the colonials fall within that and unsold testing. So there's a book about this thick that has all the breakdown of grade, condition, what the cost is, the age, the, what all the amenities are, how much the cost is for each in the assessor's office. And you could come and look at that at any time, but it'll give you what parameters were used to come to the valuation of all the properties. But it is based on market sales within the town. And just to address that one where they're saying that the higher properties only had a certain percentage increase. So when you're looking at, everybody's comparing, what's my increase, that's not the question. The question is, what were you assessed at the last revaluation? Was it correct, the last reval? Was that your market value? And then you look at what is today's market and what was I assessed at now. So you could have two identical houses next door to each other. In 19, one could have been valued at 300 and the other one could have been valued at 400. Well, now in 2024, they're both valued at 500,000. But this one was only 300, so they have a greater increase than the same person next door. So the percentage increase when you're comparing is not really accurate. You have to compare what is the actual value of the property. And
Thank you.
hopefully that.
Yes, that's very helpful, thank you.
Is that the same methodology that was applied 5 years ago?
Yes,
That same-
it should have.
Exact same?
It's
Exact
all
same?
state, yes. The state sets the parameters and they have to have certified appraisers. We have certified appraiser companies. There's like probably about 5 in the state of Connecticut. And each town has different, they choose their own.
So why would there be a
If you're
mistake?
going to ask questions, I'm going to ask you to come to the microphone, state your name. Otherwise, we're going to have a million side conversations. You wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Neeraj Tiwari from Nilebirds Road, Gulbi. I'm here staying like 7 years. I don't mind paying the taxes. Okay. The question is that most of the revenue is coming from taxes, around 90%. Correct. So what is the way you can reduce that? Taxes only can reduce when you increase the revenues. And you are trying to get the revenue from taxes only. Okay. And second question from revaluations. You are using the matrix in the wood base. Okay. I want to have the. Can you provide the picture of all the towns in Connecticut? Because you are using that state of Connecticut mandates. So definitely all the towns gone for similar re-evaluations, and how much increase has been there in compared to the wood base other towns.
Right, so the 169 municipalities in the state of Connecticut all are required to do a state mandated reval every 5 years. Some of them, but we're not all the same because we wouldn't have enough companies to do it, so they're staggered. But the ones that have been doing them since COVID have seen an increase. The ones closer to 2020 only had 25-30% increase, but as we move closer to 24-25, the increase has gone 60-80% in some towns.
But what are the changes in the bill rates has been happening in other towns? Because we can compare other towns because we are following the Connecticut state. I'm not going for other states, but only Connecticut states.
I can't speak to specifically the numbers for the other towns. I can't speak specifically to that. What I can speak to is the fact that right now, for example, I'm working with a few of the leaders in the other towns, my peers in other towns, because they have the same issue. So it's not something that's specific to Woodbridge at all. I believe Hamden went up in upwards of 50, Branford went up upwards of 50% in terms of their overall property values. And a manner of speaking is, what can you sell your house for right now? And the state of Connecticut has mandated, they have a statute that says every 5 years we have to take this view. We have to decide what value all of the houses are to make sure that every 5 years we distribute the tax burden based on the value of the homes. Right now, our values are higher than they've been in the last 20 years that I've looked at. Okay, and if you put your house up for sale, or you've seen your neighbor's house goes up for sale and you know what they sold it for, what the numbers that we've seen on assessments and on revaluation, you understand where they're coming from. Okay, so, but the issue is one that's not specific to us. It's a very frustrating situation for us as well, because we're not able to modify that in any way. The market determines what your house is worth. The law and the ordinances associated with taxes tells us what we charge based on what your house is worth. So that's what you're seeing, and that's what is happening right now. We can't arbitrarily indicate that this group of people doesn't pay this much for these reasons, but we're looking to see what we can do. We're looking to different options, and I'm working specifically with some of the other town leaders to determine if there's any way that we could mitigate, some way that we could soften the blow, understanding the impact that it has to the people whose houses went up the highest. And some of the values that we've seen, and believe me, we've looked at it extensively in terms of understanding to each resident, to individual basis, exactly what the impact is. We're trying to find a way that we could soften that, but it doesn't go away because it's a state law and it's the market, and you can't change those things. But again, as was pointed out, we've seen the same thing. The higher value homes in Woodbridge did not have as much of an increase as a medium range homes in Woodbridge did. And as a result, those people, because the mill rate went down, those people will not be their taxes may be less. And it is the people whose houses went up higher who will they're the ones who make up that difference. If they're paying less, somebody's making it up. So right now our challenge is to find out what can be done for that particular group. And anything we do has to affect everyone. So instead of you being here, somebody being here saying mine are too high, somebody may say, wait, mine was going to go down, why isn't it going down as much? But we are looking at different options to determine what can be done at this point in time. If there was a clear answer, we would have had it already because we've been looking for a while. And I can tell you, please, talk to your friends in other towns who have had revaluation this year. You'll find that they're in the same boat. There's not a lot of places, particularly in our area in Connecticut, whose home values have gone down. Woodbridge's home values took a little longer to come up. As Tony pointed out, in 2009 when we did the revaluation, they went down. 2014 they went down. 2019 they went down. And then they unfortunately went up to the point that they did this year. We will look at it, and we're trying to see what we can do, and we'll keep the public informed as to anything we can do. Right now, we haven't found a solution. Please
If
come
you
on.
want to speak, come to the microphone. No, you've already spoken.
I want to add one quick point.
Okay.
I don't disagree with anything Mr. Cardozo said. He's a fine man, and I don't disagree with anything he said. He's an honest man. What my problem is this. If I could understand something, why is it we can't reduce the mill rate down more? Because that would give a more reasonable thing. I know we can't do anything about the assessed. I don't argue with the assessed value of the home. I know it's worth that. And you can find it on Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com. It is what it is, and it has gone up a lot. The real estate market everywhere has gone up a lot. But the thing is that why can't we push? Is there any reason why we cannot push the mill rate down to the mid-20s so people only go up 10% of their taxes rather than 40% of their taxes? Thank you very much.
So I can actually answer that. If you don't change the grand list, but you lower the mill rate, then we won't collect enough in taxes to balance the budget. Because the calculation is the mill rate times the value gives you the taxes. So if you don't change the value, but you lower the mill rate, then we'll collect less in taxes. We won't balance the current budget. You'd have to reduce the budget, I guess.
What I want to say is the mill rate in like Greenwich is like 11. In Lakeville, it's like 13, whatever it is. I mean, I know in some towns like Camden and East Hartford it's very high. But of course, we know what happened in Camden with the failure to fund the pension system, which wasn't the taxpayers' fault, because I used to live in Camden for a brief period of time. That wasn't the people's fault. The people should not have to ever deal with things that, unless they should do their fair share in their part. But what I say is, why can't the mill rate, because the mill rate can go down, you're free to drop the mill rate as much as you possibly want, right? And that's something that's not
No,
statutory.
you can't pay for what you have to pay for in the town.
But if you
When you
get
talk-
10% higher, you get 10% more money.
When you talk about the mill rate, for example, in Greenwich, we'll use Greenwich as an example. The average house, for example, you have a 3-bedroom colonial or whatever it is in Woodbridge, and it's 600,000, and went up to 700,000, whatever it might be. In Greenwich, it's $1.24 million. So their grand list is greater. So when you have the grand list, and then you determine how much money you need to run the town, okay, you have the grand list is what you're going to tax off of. Then you decide how much money you need to run the town, whatever that number may be. When you identify that, the multiple, the mill rate is actually the number that you use to equate to get the number to determine what you need to run the town. So I don't know if Tony can.
Well, rather than engage in a back and forth.
No, I just want some clarity on the fact that, you know, the mill rate, I mean, that's flexible, and that's something that can be done outright.
Calculated for the purpose.
One of the ways.
Name a number so that we can pay for what needs to be paid for in the town.
And you should be able to pay for that with a 10% increase, right?
But what you need to look at is, for example, how much is a house in Greenwich?
Right.
Multiply that by the mill rate, all right, how much your assessment is, multiply it by the mill rate, you get a number, you get a tax number. That's how much they pay for taxes. Compare that number with the mill rate to Woodbridge. We did it, for example, in years past and compared it to Weston or Wilton. Their mill rate is in the 20s, ours was in the 40s. But when you did the math in terms of their average home value, their average home value was like $800,000, ours was around $500,000. When you did the math in terms of what they paid for taxes and what we paid for taxes for the same home, with good school systems, it was the same. It was $18 difference between the two. So there's a lot more there. Just having, you can't just take the mill rate and lower it. It really depends on what your overall grand list is. But
Maybe I'm wrong. The way I'm thinking, and maybe I'm wrong, but maybe correct me if I am wrong, please do, is if when the valuation went up on my homeowner's insurance. So when the homeowner's insurance, when I got that renewed, it went up because it will cost that much more to replace my house if there's a fire. It will cost $650,000 rather than $375,000. So in lieu of that, that's who is over the barrel if anything was to happen to our expensive houses now, not the town. The town doesn't have any kind of bearing if our house go for $100,000 or $100 million. They have no bearing on, we have to pay for the insurance on that expensive house, more expensive house. We have to pay for, and the insurance will go up because it's going to cost more to replace that house, which is double the price.
we've spoken before. I'm happy to have more conversation, but just to give everyone else a little opportunity to go, let's figure we're going to talk again about this.
Yes, let's do
Thank
that.
you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other thoughts and questions? Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and your road.
Hi, I'm Aaron Travis.
There you go.
Aaron Travis, on Grouse Lane. I have two questions. One, I was wondering if you know where Woodbridge lies relative to other towns in terms of our overall expenditures. I'm going to ask both and then.
Yeah, go ahead now,
Okay.
because that way Tony can address it.
Sure. And then the second question was, are there any plans or initiatives to look at commercial for raising
Good
funds?
question. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
So if you look at our expenditures based on other towns, sort of largely depends on the service. And, you know, in some of the smaller towns, our public safety costs are higher because of our proximity to New Haven, and our some of these smaller towns have smaller or have resident troopers, so their public safety costs are lower. Some towns have, you know, we have a education. It all depends on, you know, the education costs could be a little higher in some towns and lower in others. There's a lot of factors that go into that. So I'd say it sort of depends on the service, I'd say.
Are we like middle of the road, or I'm ignorant, so I just
It would largely depend, you know, in some areas we're probably a little higher, in some areas we're probably a little lower. You know, I'd be so general about it, but.
Mika, did you want to talk about the commercial?
There's a lot of resources online that I can certainly get for you. You can compare if you want to just send me an email. My email's on the website. I'm happy to send you a lot of documentation. You can sort of really get into the details.
And there was another comment made earlier in regard, and those are really, what was really a good point is, so what we really need is to find more money. We need to grow. And to that end, there's a disadvantage we have from a town perspective is we don't have a significant commercial district. We don't have a post road, we don't have a established downtown with a considerable number of stores and things of that nature. That puts us at a disadvantage. And sometimes you just have to realize who you are. We're not going to develop those overnight in particular, but maybe not at all, because those take certain infrastructure requirements and there's a lot involved with doing that. Certainly doesn't mean that we can't improve what we have. And that's what we're trying to focus on. That's what we will be focused on going into next year. We have been. What I've started to do from our perspective, what a team has started to do from our perspective, our Economic Development Commission in particular has really stepped up in terms of identifying first the businesses that are in town and working with them to see what we can do to either have them grow, but certainly to make sure that they stay. I've reached out, and the Economic Development team is reaching out to those property owners and brokers. I've met with brokers twice in the last 6 months to try to identify why they're not able to rent buildings that are open, that are vacant. We're looking for properties that exist in the business district and who owns them to determine why it is that they're still empty properties as opposed to doing some sort of development there. Those are areas that we have to explore. We're working with different groups. There's a group in the state of Connecticut. We're trying to really get them to recognize and notice us in the sense of, because they do some analysis and they identify what the potentials are. Because of our proximity to New Haven, we're hoping that they'll pay attention to us. And they will actually, one, define very specifically what can be done, help us define what can be done, and then also help us secure grants and things of that nature that we might be able to incent businesses to come in town. Another group is called Connecticut Main Street. We have a meeting in a couple of weeks with them where they do a full assessment. They'll tell us everything that's vacant. They'll tell us, and because they've done it in all different places throughout the state, they'll be able to provide the perspective that could hopefully give us the types of solutions that will fit for us, being who we are and being whatever limitations there exist. So those are particular areas that we're looking at specifically from a commercial standpoint. That would be the ideal way to grow. But we have to look at other options as well. So we do want to look at mixed use. We want, generally speaking, if people are there, businesses will come because there's opportunities. And so we have to identify where is it best that we can do these kind of things and increase some density as far as housing is concerned, whether it's mixed use, whatever it may be. We have to try to provide options for our seniors who want to downsize but would like to live in town. We don't have a lot of options for those folks. So we have to provide those options because they're moving out to another town nearby and they're paying taxes to the other town. And somebody's moving into their home, possibly with kids, who are going to our schools. So we're missing out on that opportunity. And those are the types of things that we have to look at and we have to understand, and then we have to work toward making that happen. And that's what we're going to be working toward throughout this coming year.
Sir.
Fred Ginsberg, Old Mill Road. I think I don't know formulas, so I don't know how all this works for the assessors, etc. I think what people are looking for is fairness. Okay, so I don't know the number of high-end houses there were that are seeing decreases and what the dollar amount is versus people in the middle who are seeing 18, 25, 30% increases. But what I wonder, because this is not going to happen fast. We've been talking about this for years, about commercial owners. And I don't know if it's possible to tweak formulas. But I'm pretty sure if I was in that high-end house and I was seeing a decrease of 4%, I wouldn't have a problem saying I'll pay 4. I'll pay 8% more than you're telling me I have to pay. And I don't think those people would mind coughing up a little more money so that others can pay less.
just as a fairness thing. Now, that may be against all the laws, maybe against all the formulas, but, said, if my taxes went down in this environment, or my values went up, I'd be scratching my head. So I would like an answer, because I don't hear that there is any plan. I don't hear that you have any formulas where you can say by May 19th, there's going to be a new mill rate that's going to make most of these people happy.
I'm not going to pretend that there's a formula that we can make everybody happy. I won't.
No, but
However,
less unhappy.
To your point,
Less unhappy.
to your point, that's exactly what I mentioned before in terms of what we're trying to do and why we're having conversations with the other towns who may have ideas that we just weren't aware of or haven't been tried. But that's exactly what we're doing now. We're trying to find a means by which we can do just what you're describing. Make it a little less painful for the people who are paying the most and have the people who are in a position possibly to maybe break even,
Yeah.
pay a little bit more in order to...
Well, that's what I want to hear.
The word you use is fair. That's what we're trying to find something that'll help make things a little bit more fair from that perspective.
I think people here would like to hear what I just said is being discussed, and that there's a good chance that that might actually come about.
We exchanged emails today with 5 other towns in our area, the leaders of 5 other towns in our area, with the governor's office specifically, meet with him to see if there's anything that can be done along the lines of what we're stating. So yes, there is very tangible, real action taking place to see what can be done. What I'm not in a position to say is that something can be done. But we are going to, if something can't be done, we'll be able to look at you and say, we tried this, and this is why it can't be done.
Well, transparency,
Right.
we want. We want to know how those discussions go, I think.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Ms. Silver?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, then I'll talk for one time. Diana Urbano, 52 North Peaks Road. I've been coming to these budget meetings for many years, and always heard growth. We need growth. We need growth. We've had growth. I just came from Saloon 14th anniversary there. 245 Amity Road was built 16 years ago. Since then, there was nothing until a major project, which I think is 88, 92 units, Toll Brothers. I've heard nothing about that. That is real growth. It may make some people happy, not in terms of what it is. It's 55 up. It should have brought a lot of money in building permits. It should have already brought money in taxes, and it will bring more. And I find it disturbing that that has not been brought up in the budget presentation. I don't see it clearly in the numbers. And it's like a loss of faith for me, because we had a major thing, and the impact is weird. I don't know. Was it just more money to spend? I don't get it. I'm disturbed by it. And I would also say, when I hear people, and I understand fairness and all this, and I understand the appraisal process and the assessment process and the mill rate, painfully so. But what we really have here is a redistribution at a time when we want more equity and more fairness. And it's really come down, we own commercial property and we own our home. And because commercial property has not increased as much as residential for many reasons, the percentage is lower for our commercial base. And for the big homes that actually helped over the years so much with the taxes, they are like the commercial. They have not increased as much. But it's the moderate homes, the homes where my children live in, that have been smashed. And so in terms of fairness and all that, there's only one way to do it: spend less. I mean, come up with ways. It's because, and it's, you have some growth. This mill rate should have been lower. It's just, I'm sorry, and I know everyone works hard, I know it, and thank you for that, but I'm a sad person to me.
There you go. A couple of things. Diane, first of all, as far as the development, it's about 70 units that they expect to put on two sides, a little bit more than half done at this point in time. It has brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars to our town. It has brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars to our town. That had it not been there, we would have had to raise more taxes in order, if that hadn't been there. So it's a wonderful thing that they're there. It does have an impact on the town, thank goodness. And we're looking for more. We're hoping that they sell as many as they possibly can. When it comes to spending, if you look at the numbers like in the presentation that Tony provided, you yourself know that inflation over the past, since 2017, is well over 30%. The difference between 2017 from here. We've grown the town budget by 16% during that same amount of time. If you're going down during a period of inflation going up, every single item, just like at your home, goes up. If you're not going up with that, you're actually spending less. There's only one way to make that happen. That's to read, and you can look at our numbers in terms of the number of the people who live in town, who work in town. Our numbers as far as employees have gone down from a town perspective. We pay for our schools. This town values our schools. This town values open space. What we value is what we pay for. So from the perspective of spending less, it's at the schools. That means less teachers. That means less programs. That means that's where we are now as a town in terms of if we want to stop spending, that's where we're spending our money. It's not on town services. Because as I said, that's gone up 16% while inflation has gone up 33%. So there's only one way for that to happen, and that's really controlling your costs in terms of your growth and what you're doing from the town perspective. But we do value education. And it's not to say we can't do something where the education is concerned, but that's where we need to look. So just more along the lines of what's happening. And Toll Brothers has been, I think they're in the top 10 of our taxpayers at this point in time in a very short period of time. So that was really very, very helpful.
So, Tony, what % increase have they contributed to our revenue base? Or should you understand?
They, one place that they've contributed significantly is with building permits, as you indicated. Particularly if you look online on our budget, you can see more detail. But we have a budget of about $540,000, and that usually was around $300,000. So they contribute several $100,000 in building permits over the past few years. You can also see on our online budget, as Mika indicated, it's got the top 10 taxpayers. Yes. So if you go on there, you can see the Toll Brothers and how much portion of the grand list is attributed to Toll Brothers. So if you apply the mill rate, you can sort of get an idea of the taxes that they've generated.
Are there other questions or comments?
Name is Bill Silver.
Karen, use the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Here we go.
Is that great?
Thank you.
My pleasure. Tony, what is the basic fund balance now in the town of Woodbridge?
You mean the amount?
Yes.
Yeah. The balance is around $9 million.
I'm sorry.
$9 million?
$9 million. What does Moody's and the other bonding agencies require us to have to continue to?
So if you talk to bonding agencies and Moody's, the higher your fund balance, the better. They have, because from the perspective of a bond agency, the more fund balance you have, the better more likely you are to satisfy the bondholders when they do debt services due.
But you didn't answer my question. The question is, I understand that, but the question is, how much do we need in that fund balance, or do you estimate that Moody's would want us to have to maintain our AAA bond rating?
I would say that, again, if you look at any of our Moody's reviews, they all say that our fund balance is low compared to other communities. So I don't think Moody's is really the question. If you look at sort of metrics from like the government finance officers or some other associations or what other towns do. It's really a town-by-town decision. Some towns it's usually done by like percentage of your budget. So
You think we're at the lower
like
end of the
15% of
spectrum?
your budget, I would say we're probably, compared to other AAA communities, probably in the middle.
In the middle.
Yeah.
On the last item on the back page, I believe it's the last item, you moved $800,000 out of the fund balance account. I appreciate very much one of your graphs that showed what was going to happen if we were to bond various new projects here. Am I the only one who sees that it's going to hit the fan like crazy here? What everyone is talking about here amounts up to nickels.
We all see it, believe me, Bill.
Yeah, it's only nickels and dimes what you're talking about, all you folks. Let's leave the word out, we'll hit the fan in the next couple of years. I, as an individual who lived in this town for 66 years, appreciate very much the comments of the first selectman. But even if everything he wants to do gets going tomorrow, it's going to hit the fan in the next couple of years. $50 million in a school, if that goes through, and I'm not sure it will, assuming 20% return from the state of Connecticut, which I also questionably doubt with the state getting into financial difficulties, will probably add, in my estimate, and correct me, Tony, and I could be wrong, maybe $3 million a year to our budget. Not too far off?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, $3 million to our $60 million budget. That's 5% right there. If you start to deal with the other situations, I've heard about a new police station, 20 years maybe, I don't know, I lose count. You're giving my age, the Vietnam War and the Civil War in the same era. But these are all issues facing us. I love this town and I thank this town for letting me live here for 66 years and to have educated my children to a great extent. But I'm on the downside of the equation and I want to see things get better. We've got to face up to the realities of what are coming. And I would only ask the following with a deep bit of concern, that the budget be cut 2% across the board. Why? Because I know it's going to be bad in the future. And to take that 2% and put it into the fund balance to buffer us against what is going to happen in 2027, 28, 29, 30. In the state of Connecticut, and the average taxes paid by an individual, a homeowner, is approximately 1.79%, if I'm reading the figures correctly on the internet, of the market value. I'm sorry. I hate mill rates. I think it's the worst term ever invented. If you take the market value, it's 1.79, you're smiling, Tony. 1.79% of the market value, not the assessed value, the market value of your house. In Woodbridge, with the reevaluation, we're already above that 1.79. But that may also have to do with the fact that Town X, which was put into the average by the state of Connecticut, was done, reassessed 3 years ago or some other time other than right now. We lost a great man here years ago. We've had some great people in town. One of them was a guy named Michael Luther, who one day stood up at this town meeting and said, everything here in this town of Woodbridge is due to the fecundity rate. I ran home and grabbed my dictionary. I wasn't sure what fecundity rate was. Sex. Okay, we're going to look at the Amity budget later on, not here, but at another meeting. And it's proportional to the number of individuals. I called the Beecher School and asked, do we still present the numbers of how many children are born in any one particular year here in the town of Woodbridge? And 5 years later, how many children enter our kindergarten system? I remember numbers, and I'm a little foggy, of 1.3, 1.4 children, stating that children were moving into the town for in the school system. We no longer keep those numbers. But, you know, Mika, it's a number we've got to look at. Demographics seem to imply that populations are dropping. But we're a small little entity within a big pond, and that may not apply to us. We're going to look at a budget. The biggest factor affecting our budget, you said it, is the school system. And unless we have a good understanding of what's going to happen and how many people are supposedly moving into this town, we're not going to be able to deal effectively with this school, the budget. So, I'm not going to be around that much longer, I don't think, but I want to thank people in this town for having helped me educate with their mother 3 young men who've been successful. And it was due to the people in this town, the teachers we had, to what the town gave us, the safe environment and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak? Yes. Come on up to the mic if you want to speak. State your name and please in your room.
My name is Jerry Veering, 8 Crestview Drive. I have a question. You know, we're talking about this budget as it is now, but with this 92-unit complex that's hypothetically going up, how is that going to affect the school system, et cetera, et cetera? All in the big, I mean, we're talking, everybody's worried about their taxes. That's going to change dramatically, correct?
Not necessarily.
How do you
It
think
depends.
of
Will it
that?
change? Yes. Will there be more kids if that unit goes up? Yes. The unit itself is proposed as 20-some odd, about 20% of it is one efficiencies. Another 50% of it is 1-bedrooms, and the remaining 20 or 30, 25% of it is 2-bedrooms.
So you're not concerned?
Am I concerned?
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, just the
concerned about
impact
anything.
on the school budget is the largest part. And then so, I mean, what we're looking at now and then down the road, it could be a really big difference. But that's all I have to say. I was just wondering, you know, where you with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions regarding the budget? Going once, going twice? Seeing none, I'm adjourning the preliminary budget hearing. Thank you all for coming.